Well, Elliot, I think there's an increasing credibility gap in terms of what the Japanese government is saying and the way people are interpreting it. I mean, I think everyone I've talked to here, I haven't met anyone who really has faith in the public statements that are being made by the Japanese government, because in truth it seems that the Japanese government is getting their information from this private company, which is still in charge of the operation. You know, people complained during the BP oil spill that BP was running too much of the show, and the U.S. government kept saying, no, you know, we're the ones in charge. You know, there was though there wasn't enough transparency in that situation, there was some transparency. In this situation, there is virtually no transparency. Everybody is dependent, it seems, on these statements, on whatever information is being put out by the private Japanese company, and we know from their track record they have a history of misleading the public. So it's of great concern. I think I think all of this is compounded by now the statements by U.S. officials, which seem to be very frank statements. And I think people, frankly, appreciate the frankness, because in an emergency situation like this, the last thing you want is to not have credibility, to not believe the statements which are being made by the authorities. And I think there's a lot of people, especially in Tokyo, you know, when you go up to the northeast, which are the tsunami-affected areas, people are trying to figure out where to get food, where to get water. You know, they're in homeless shelters. They may not be as focused on this issue, but people here in Tokyo, where there is no tsunami damage, are focused constantly on what is happening up in the Fukushima plant. So it's very worrying, especially when you consider now the statements made by U.S. officials.
You know, Anderson, you're so right. This sort of tension between the clarity with which the chairman of the NRC, our highest nuclear regulatory fellow, said this is dangerous, here's the situation, and the sort of vagueness and obscurity that we keep hearing from the Japanese officials. And when I asked Mr. Shikata, who's the spokesman for the Prime Minister of Japan, and we'll play this in just a couple moments, I said, how do you square these? They had no answer. There is simply this complete disconnect. So how's the public there dealing with this?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw an interview that man did, the spokesman for the Prime Minister, did on CNN International a couple hours ago, and I can't wait to see the interview that you did with him, because the interview he did on CNN International, he was talking, but he was not saying anything. And I literally, as a viewer, I'm sitting there watching, wanting to throw something at the screen, because in a situation like this, everybody wants information. And granted, it's a fast-moving situation. It's not clear, you know, what the condition of some of these rods is. It's not clear exactly what's going on in the plant. But you at least want somebody to say, you know what, it's not clear, as opposed to kind of saying, well, we're all working together and you know, we're endeavoring to rectify the situation. I mean, things which just are words but don't really have much meaning. It's also frustrating, I think. A lot of people probably considered earlier, the last couple of days, that the IAEA was somehow on site, or at least monitoring or overseeing from here. We've learned now, of course, in the last 24 hours, the IAEA does not have a presence here. Now, the head of the IAEA is talking about coming in perhaps today, but it would just be a one-day visit from what I've read of his statements. And you know, the information they're getting just seems to be getting the information from the Japanese government, which is getting the information from this private company. So even you have the energy secretary saying that they are not receiving enough information from their Japanese counterparts, and that's very worrying and incredibly frustrating.